My name is David Cooper, and I used to believe I had the perfect marriage. Now I know that perfection is just another word for a well-constructed lie. I'm 42 years old, a systems engineer who solves complex problems for a living. For nearly 20 years, I thought I'd solved the equation of happiness with Elizabeth. We met in college. She was studying marketing while I buried myself in computer science. She laughed at my engineering jokes, found my methodical nature endearing rather than boring. When we married at 23, I believed we'd cracked the code that so many others fumbled with. We built our life like I'd construct a system, carefully, deliberately, with redundancies for stability. No children. We'd decided early that we were enough for each other. Our Tudor-style house in the suburbs became our sanctuary, filled with routines that felt like comfort rather than monotony. Saturday morning farmers markets, Sunday crossword puzzles over coffee, anniversary dinners at the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. Elizabeth used to light up when I'd explain my latest project, even when the technical details clearly bored her. She'd curl into my side on the couch, content with Netflix and Chinese takeout after her long days at the marketing firm. My salary as a senior engineer meant she could have stopped working years ago, but she loved her job, loved feeling independent. I admired that about her, but patterns shift. Systems develop bugs. The changes started 8 months ago, subtle as a memory leak in poorly written code. Elizabeth's girls' trips evolved from occasional weekend brunches to elaborate getaways, spa retreats in Sedona, wine tours in Napa, shopping excursions to boutique hotels I'd never heard of. She'd return with designer bags that didn't match the modest spa packages she claimed to book. Her credit card statements conveniently vague about actual locations. Her phone became a third presence in our marriage. It buzzed constantly with notifications that made her smile, not the polite smile she gave me over dinner, but something private and electric. She started taking it into the bathroom, keeping it face down during meals, password-protecting apps that never needed security before. "Who's texting you?" I'd ask, trying to sound casual. "Just Melissa," she'd reply, naming her college roommate, planning the next trip. But Melissa posted on Instagram from her kids' soccer games during Elizabeth's last girls' weekend. As an engineer, I catalog anomalies. Elizabeth now schedules her trips during my quarterly reviews, when overtime is mandatory and I can't possibly join. Her stories about these getaways follow templates. Too perfect, too rehearsed, lacking the random details that make experiences real. She returns from spa treatments with new perfume, lingerie I never see, and exhaustion that has nothing to do with hot stone massages. Last week, I found a receipt in her purse while looking for gum. La Bergerie, a restaurant 2 hours away that charges more for appetizers than we spend on weekly groceries. The date matched a Thursday when she'd supposedly worked late on a campaign presentation. The engineer in me demands proof before drawing conclusions. But the husband in me already knows. The way she angles her body away from me in bed. The mechanical nature of our intimacy on the rare occasions it happens. The sparkle in her eyes that exists for someone else, triggered by text messages I'm not meant to see. 20 years. We'd built 2 decades of memories, inside jokes, shared dreams. Now I catalog lies instead of counting anniversaries. I document suspicious charges instead of planning surprises. My marriage has become a bug report, and I'm the only one interested in debugging it. Tonight, Elizabeth announced another girls' trip. This weekend, she said, a last-minute spa opportunity with her book club. She packed while I pretended to work, folding silk blouses I'd never seen, tucking away jewelry she'd never worn for me. Her suitcase contained the kind of clothes you pack when someone will see you undress, not the comfortable wear of genuine girlfriend's getaways. "I'll miss you," she said, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. The same pressure, duration, and placement as every goodbye kiss for the past 6 months. Even her affection had become algorithmic. "Have fun," I replied, already knowing what I had to do. Logic demanded proof, not accusations. Elizabeth had another girls' trip planned for the weekend, something about a spa resort with her college friends. This time I'd know exactly where my wife was going and who she was really with. The GPS tracker arrived via Amazon Prime, small enough to hide in the wheel well of Elizabeth's Honda. My engineering background made the installation simple: a magnetic mount, weatherproof casing, cellular connectivity for real-time tracking. The mobile app synced flawlessly with my phone. Technology solving personal problems, though nothing in my computer science degree had prepared me for debugging my own marriage. I installed it Thursday night while Elizabeth slept, her phone charging beside her, still occasionally lighting up with messages that made her smile in her dreams. The device felt like a betrayal in my hands. 20 years of trust reduced to a piece of Chinese electronics the size of a matchbox. But data doesn't lie, even when wives do. Friday morning arrived with Elizabeth's rehearsed energy. She hummed while brewing coffee, checked her phone every few minutes, packed last-minute items with particular care. A new bottle of perfume. The expensive lingerie set I'd found the credit card charge for but never seen. She moved through our kitchen like an actress who'd memorized her blocking. "The spa's near Bernardsville," she announced, naming a town 90 minutes away. That new place Kelly found on Groupon. Kelly, another fictitious friend or perhaps a real person enlisted as an alibi. I nodded, sipping coffee while the GPS tracker performed its initial system check. Green lights confirming operational status from my phone screen hidden beneath the kitchen table. "Traffic might be bad," I offered. "Friday evening rush?" "We're leaving early to beat it," she replied, kissing my forehead with another precisely measured gesture. "Don't wait up Sunday. We might do dinner on the way back." An hour after her Honda disappeared down our tree-lined street, I opened the tracking app. The blue dot representing Elizabeth's car moved steadily north, but not toward Bernardsville. She drove west instead, away from spa towns and toward rural Pennsylvania. I watched her progress while pretending to work, my dual monitors displaying code I wasn't writing and a GPS trail I couldn't stop watching. She stopped once for gas in a town I'd never heard of. The app showed her stationary for 12 minutes, enough time to fuel up, use the restroom, maybe send texts to whoever waited at her real destination. Then movement again, deeper into countryside where cell towers grew sparse and the tracker's updates became intermittent. By 3 p.m., Elizabeth's car had stopped moving. The location, a private road near Bushkill, Pennsylvania, 2 counties away from any spa, salon, or girlfriend's house. Satellite view showed dense woods, scattered cabins, the kind of place people went to disappear from their regular lives. I couldn't concentrate on work. Every refresh of the app confirmed the same location. Elizabeth's car hadn't moved in an hour. I told myself to wait, to gather more data, to approach this like any systematic problem. But some bugs demand immediate debugging. The drive to Bushkill took 2 hours through Friday traffic and winding country roads. I played podcasts about machine learning to maintain the illusion of normalcy, but absorbed nothing. My mind ran scenarios: confrontation, divorce proceedings, the division of assets accumulated over 2 decades. The GPS led me through increasingly remote terrain, past farms and forests, down roads that Google Maps barely recognized. When I reached the vicinity of the tracker's signal, I parked a quarter-mile away and walked. Evening shadows provided cover as I approached through woods that smelled of pine and damp earth. My heart pounded with each step, the sound seeming loud enough to announce my arrival. Then I saw them. Elizabeth's Honda parked beside a black Mercedes AMG GT, the kind of car that cost more than most people's houses. The cabin beyond was rustic but elegant. Cedar walls, stone chimney, wraparound porch with handcrafted furniture. Warm light spilled from windows designed for privacy, not views. I crept closer, my business casual clothes inappropriate for wilderness reconnaissance. Through a gap in the curtains, I saw them, Elizabeth and a man I didn't recognize. He was younger, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of confident posture that came from never having been denied anything. They held wine glasses, stood close enough that their bodies formed a single shadow on the far wall. When he kissed her, Elizabeth melted into him with enthusiasm I hadn't seen in years. Her hands tangled in his hair. His arms wrapped around her like he owned her, and maybe he did, owned the version of her I'd never met. They moved together toward what must have been the bedroom, leaving me standing in darkness, watching windows that no longer showed anything but empty rooms. I photographed everything. Both cars from multiple angles. License plates clearly visible. The cabin's address numbers. Timestamps on every image. My phone camera clicked with the same detachment I used to document software bugs. Evidence for lawyers, for proceedings, for the systematic dismantling of 20 years. The Mercedes license plate was registered to Michael Williams, according to a quick database search. The name meant nothing yet, but it would. I'd make sure of that. Men who destroyed marriages deserved consequences. I drove home in silence, not trusting music or podcasts to maintain my composure. The house felt different when I returned. Not empty, but finally honest. Elizabeth's absence had always been present. Now I just had proof. Saturday morning, I began my research. Michael Williams owned Williams Luxury Motors, a high-end dealership specializing in exotic cars. His Facebook page showed a successful businessman, charity fundraiser, and, most importantly, a married father of 3. His wife Sarah taught 3rd grade at a private school. Their children played soccer and violin, smiled from professional family portraits. The irony tasted bitter. My wife's affair partner had his own family to betray. I drove home with a stranger's license plate number memorized and 20 years of marriage dissolving in my rearview mirror. By morning, I'd know exactly who was helping my wife destroy our life. And then the real planning would begin. Michael Williams lived a life designed for social media. His Facebook timeline read like a marketing campaign for success. Charity galas, business achievements, family vacations to places with water too blue to be real. Williams Luxury Motors had won Dealer of the Year 3 times running. He coached his son's little league team, sponsored his daughter's dance recitals, and posted Bible verses every Sunday. The hypocrite even had a post from 2 months ago about the sanctity of marriage. I cross-referenced his posts with Elizabeth's social media, using the systematic approach that had earned me 6 figures debugging complex systems. The patterns emerged like malicious code. Elizabeth's emergency client meetings aligned with Michael's business trips. Her new interest in wine corresponded with his posts from vineyard tours. The timeline stretched back 8 months, matching when I'd first noticed changes in her behavior. Financial forensics revealed more. Our joint account showed charges at restaurants Elizabeth claimed she'd never visited, hotels during her supposed girls' nights out, purchases at lingerie boutiques that preceded Michael's conference weekends. She'd been sloppy, arrogant, or maybe just didn't care if I discovered the truth eventually. Sarah Williams deserved better than learning about her husband's affair through divorce papers. Finding her contact information took minutes. Sarah maintained a teacher's blog about creative education, posted frequently about her children's achievements, and shared recipes in mommy Facebook groups. Her Instagram showed a woman who found genuine joy in ordinary moments: morning coffee, student art projects, family game nights. She looked tired in recent photos, the kind of exhaustion that comes from pretending everything's fine. I created a Proton Mail account, anonymous and encrypted. The message was simple. Your husband's Mercedes was at this location last night. You deserve to know. 1 photo attached. Both cars at the cabin, timestamp visible, GPS coordinates embedded in the metadata. Sarah's response came within 2 hours. Who is this? What are you talking about? I sent my reply with another photo, this one showing Michael and Elizabeth through the cabin window, their embrace unmistakable even in silhouette. I'm the husband of the woman he's with. We should talk. The coffee shop I suggested was equidistant between our neighborhoods, public enough for safety but private enough for devastating conversations. I arrived early with a folder of evidence organized chronologically, each document labeled and cross-referenced. 20 years of engineering had taught me that overwhelming data prevented denial. Sarah entered looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Her teacher's cardigan was misbuttoned, her usually perfect hair pulled into a distracted ponytail. She found my table without asking. I must have looked exactly like a man whose wife was sleeping with her husband. Show me, she said without preamble. I spread the evidence across the table. GPS tracking logs, credit card statements, social media correlations, photographs from the cabin. Sarah examined each piece with the methodical attention of someone grading papers, occasionally making small sounds that might have been breathing or crying. 8 months, she whispered, finding the first hotel charge that aligned with Michael claiming to be at an automotive conference in Detroit. At least. That's when the pattern becomes clear, I confirmed. She pulled out her own phone, scrolling through messages and photos with new understanding. He said the distance was work stress. Said he was building the business for our future, she said, her laugh bitter. I actually felt guilty for complaining about his absences. We spent 3 hours assembling the complete picture. Sarah had her own evidence. Unexplained charges, changed passwords, a second phone she'd found and he'd claimed was for international clients. Together, we constructed a timeline that revealed the affair's evolution from flirtation to full deception. They're going back next weekend, I said, checking the tracker's history. Same cabin. Elizabeth already told me about another spa trip. Sarah's expression shifted, teacher's patience transforming into something harder. Michael has a dealer's convention in Atlantic City, she replied. Already showed me the registration confirmation. She paused. Probably fake. We could confront them. Lawyers, divorce papers, standard proceedings, I suggested. Standard, she repeated, speaking the word like profanity. My children are in counseling because their father misses their recitals for his whore. My mother has cancer, and I'm managing treatments alone while Michael plays house with your wife. Standard proceedings? The coffee shop's ambient noise faded. Sarah stared at photos of the cabin with an intensity that made me reconsider what I'd started. Betrayed spouses were dangerous. Betrayed mothers were something else entirely. What would you do? She asked. If you could guarantee they faced real consequences? I'm not suggesting anything illegal, I answered carefully. Neither am I, she said. But consequences don't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes they come from choices catching up to people who thought they were too smart to get caught. She stood to leave, then turned back. Next weekend, you said? I nodded. I know where the cabin is now. GPS coordinates are very helpful, she continued. Teachers are good at lesson planning, and some lessons can only be taught once. I watched her leave, wondering if I'd just signed something's death warrant, a marriage, a relationship, or something more permanent. Sarah Williams had the look of someone who'd found their breaking point and decided to break something back. That night, I reviewed the code I'd written for tracking Elizabeth, the digital breadcrumbs that led to a cabin in the woods. In engineering, we call it elegant when a solution perfectly fits the problem. But elegance in code and elegance in revenge were different calculations entirely. Sarah texted me once before the weekend. Confirmed. He's packing for Atlantic City. I responded with tracker data. She leaves Friday afternoon. Sarah stared at the photographs until her hands stopped shaking, then looked up at me with eyes that had gone cold as winter. Some lessons, she said quietly, can only be taught with consequences. I knew I'd just handed a loaded gun to a broken woman. Saturday evening, I tried to code. The project was due Monday, a security patch for a financial services client, but the lines of code blurred together. Elizabeth's GPS tracker showed her car had been at the cabin for 24 hours. Stationary, peaceful, a blue dot on my phone representing the end of everything I'd built. I'd told myself I wouldn't monitor the situation obsessively, but the tracker app remained open on my second screen. Every few minutes, I'd glance over, confirming the Honda hadn't moved. She was there with him in their rented paradise, while I debugged software and pretended my life wasn't simultaneously crashing. Sarah had gone dark after our final exchange. No texts, no calls, no indication of her intentions. Maybe she'd chickened out, chosen the civilized path of lawyers and custody battles. Or maybe she was driving through Pennsylvania darkness with lessons to teach. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Cooper? The voice said. This is Deputy Martinez with the County Sheriff's Office. There's been an incident involving your wife. She's been transported to Regional Medical Center. You should come immediately. The drive to the hospital was a blur of highway lights and half-formed thoughts. The deputy had provided minimal details. An incident, injuries, Elizabeth in critical condition. My mind ran debugging protocols, trying to process incomplete data. Car accident? Medical emergency? Or had Sarah Williams found her own solution to the betrayal equation? Regional Medical Center's emergency room was harsh, fluorescent chaos. I found Deputy Martinez, a tired-looking woman who'd seen too many Saturday night tragedies. She led me to a quiet corner, her expression professionally grave. "Your wife was involved in a shooting at a cabin in Bushkill," she explained. "She survived, but she's in surgery. Multiple gunshot wounds to the torso and shoulder. The doctors are optimistic, but it's serious." "Who shot her?" I asked. "Sarah Williams is in custody," she answered. She admitted to everything immediately. "Claimed she found her husband with your wife and—" Martinez paused, choosing words carefully. "She brought a .38 special registered in her name. Michael Williams was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 shots, center mass. The waiting room chair was uncomfortably plastic, designed to prevent long-term occupation. I sat anyway, processing the data. Sarah had executed her lesson plan. Michael Williams would never miss another recital, because he'd never attend one again. Elizabeth had survived, but survival and living were different calculations. 3 hours later, a surgeon in scrubs, spattered with my wife's blood, explained the damage. 2 bullets removed, 1 lung partially collapsed, shoulder reconstruction needed. Elizabeth would live, but recovery would take months. The physical recovery, at least. When they finally let me see her, Elizabeth looked small in the hospital bed, tangled in tubes and wires like a bug caught in a spider's web. Her eyes opened when I approached, morphine-glazed but alert enough to recognize me. Relief flooded her features, followed immediately by fear. "David," she whispered, reaching for my hand. I kept my hands in my pockets, maintaining debugging distance. "I'm here to serve divorce papers," I said, placing the manila envelope on her bedside table next to the morphine drip controls. "My attorney will handle everything else." "You knew," she stated. Not a question. The morphine couldn't hide her growing understanding. "I tracked your car, found the cabin, documented everything," I explained, pulling out my phone to show her the GPS history. 8 months of data, Elizabeth. Every trip, every lie, every betrayal time-stamped and archived. She started crying, but tears were just another form of data output. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," she sobbed. "Michael Williams is dead. His 3 children don't have a father. Sarah Williams killed a man because of your affair," I said coldly. "You didn't pull the trigger, but you loaded the gun." "How did she know where?" Elizabeth stopped, the final piece clicking. "You told her," she accused. "I showed her the same evidence I'm showing the divorce attorney," I clarified. What she chose to do with that information was her decision. Just like sleeping with her husband was yours. Elizabeth tried to sit up, winced, fell back. "You set this up," she said desperately. "You wanted this to happen. I wanted the truth. Sarah Williams wanted justice. You and Michael wanted each other," I replied. Everyone got what they wanted, just not how they imagined it. A nurse entered to check vitals, providing a natural break in our final conversation. I watched the monitors display Elizabeth's heartbeat, blood pressure, oxygen levels, biological data streams confirming she was alive while everything else died. 20 years, Elizabeth said when the nurse left. "Doesn't that count for something?" "It counted for everything," I answered. "That's why betraying it costs everything." I left her there, surrounded by machines keeping her stable while her world collapsed. In the hallway, I passed Sarah Williams in handcuffs, escorted by 2 deputies. Our eyes met. No words, just acknowledgement. She'd taught her lesson. The students were dead or damaged. The tuition had been paid in blood and years. The parking garage echoed with my footsteps, each one taking me further from the life I'd built with Elizabeth. My phone showed the GPS tracker's last update. Her Honda still at the cabin, now part of a crime scene that would be processed and photographed and analyzed for months. I sat in my car for a long time, engine off, watching other people navigate their own hospital tragedies. Somewhere above me, Elizabeth was learning that survival had its own price. Somewhere else, Sarah Williams was being processed into the legal system that would dissect her marriage alongside her crime. And Michael Williams was being prepared for a funeral his children would always remember. The code I'd written to track Elizabeth had worked perfectly, every function executing as designed. But some programs, once run, couldn't be terminated cleanly. They left processes running in the background, memory leaks that slowly consumed everything. I walked out of that hospital knowing I'd orchestrated the destruction of everyone I'd once cared about. Elizabeth was alive, but everything else was dead, including the man I used to be. 6 months later, I work from a different home office. The house in Portland has a view of Mount Hood on clear days, rain drumming against windows on most others. My transfer request had been approved without question. The company understood that sometimes engineers needed to debug their lives alongside their code. The divorce was finalized last month. Elizabeth didn't contest anything, signing documents from a rehabilitation facility where she was learning to use her left arm again. The settlement was mechanical. Assets divided, accounts separated, 20 years reduced to PDF files and DocuSign signatures. Her attorney mentioned she'd moved to Arizona afterward, seeking sun and anonymity in equal measure. Sarah Williams took a plea deal. Voluntary manslaughter, 15 years with possibility of parole in 7. The teacher who'd never missed a parent conference became another statistic in crimes of passion. Her children live with Michael's parents now, their Instagram posts showing forced smiles at birthday parties and school events. They'd inherited their father's money but lost both parents' presents. Williams Luxury Motors closed within 3 months. No one wanted to buy cars from a dealership whose owner had been murdered by his wife for having an affair. The inventory was auctioned off. The building now hosts a medical supply company. Michael's online presence persists in cached pages and memorial posts, digital ghosts of a man who thought he could have everything. I still have the GPS tracker, sitting in my desk drawer beside warranty paperwork and tax documents. Sometimes I take it out, turn it over in my hands, remember how such a small device triggered such massive destruction. The battery died months ago, but I keep it as a reminder. Some knowledge demands consequences. My new project involves AI-driven security systems, algorithms that detect intrusion patterns before breaches occur. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm building professional solutions for problems I couldn't solve personally until it was too late, or perhaps exactly on time, depending on your perspective on justice. Elizabeth sent one email last week, forwarded through her attorney. She wanted me to know she was sorry, that she understood the magnitude of her betrayal, that therapy was helping her understand why she'd destroyed everything for excitement that turned into horror. I deleted it without responding. Apologies were just error messages thrown after the program had already crashed. Some nights I dream about that cabin. Not the violence, I wasn't there for that. But I imagine the moment Sarah Williams walked through the door, gun in hand, teaching her final lesson. Did Elizabeth recognize her? Did she understand in that split second how thoroughly actions had found their consequences? The dreams wake me, but not from guilt. More like notifications from a process still running in the background, one that can't be force quit. I've started dating again, cautiously. A fellow engineer named Amy who appreciates my methodical nature and doesn't ask about my past. We solve coding problems together over coffee, build applications that make sense, follow logical patterns that produce predictable outputs. It's not love yet, but it's honest. And that's enough for now. The rain continues against my window as I finish this account. Somewhere, Elizabeth is learning to be alone with her scars. Sarah Williams is teaching literacy to other inmates. Michael Williams' children are growing up with questions that will never have satisfying answers. And I'm here, debugging a new life from the corrupted files of the old one, knowing that some programs, once executed, change the entire system permanently. The perfect marriage was just bad code that finally threw a fatal exception. Some errors can't be handled gracefully. They can only be documented and avoided in future iterations. David Cooper's story ends where it began, with an engineer solving problems, one line of code at a time. In a world where human hearts don't follow documentation and betrayal compiles into consequences, no one can fully debug. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.